So first I am going to be making the pie dough to create the double crust for the peach cobbler. So here I have 2 2/3 cups of all-purpose flour. And to that I am going to add 1.5 sticks, or basically 12 tablespoons of salted butter. And I'm actually using a vegan butter because it's what I have. I'm just trying to use things. I've been trying to avoid going to the grocery store this week. So if you guys are wondering, why is she using crazy ingredients, or my last video I did a pantry refrigerator raid, that is why. I try not to go to the grocery store very often, so I'm really trying to make use ingredients I have available. So for the pie crust, I've got my flour, my 1.5 sticks of butter, or salted butter. Make sure you're using salted butter. If you have unsalted, then you can add maybe 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I'm just going to work that in with a dough cutter until it is combined with the flour. Okay, so this is worked in. Now, I'm working with clean hands, by the way. I'm going to add ice cold water until the dough comes together. And you'll just want to add a tablespoon of water until a dough ball forms. So it may vary. Okay, so it's together. So I probably should have used only 10 tablespoons, but I did add 11 tablespoons. So somewhere between, I'd say 9 and 11 tablespoons of water worked. So now it's time to roll this out. Okay, so I floured my work surface and I have it on parchment paper. That makes it a lot easier to put into your baking dish. So I'm just going to roll this out into a rectangular shape. I am going to be using, it's somewhere between 2.5, 2.7 quart baking dish, and it is a rectangular shape. You could probably get away with using an 8x12 rectangular baking dish. If you wanted to use a 9x13, I don't think this recipe ratio will fit in a 9x13. It's a little less for that, so that gives you an idea. I have this particular baking dish that my husband bought me, so I sort of created this recipe to fit in that particular baking dish, but I'll be sure to put all the ingredients and measurements in the description below. Okay, so here's the baking dish I was talking about. And a lot of you always ask me like, oh, that's such a pretty dish, or what type of pan or bakeware you're using. This says Ceramica, made in Portugal. That's the only thing I can tell you about this. This was a gift from my husband. Okay, so I'm just going to flip my pie dough into my bakeware. So now I'm just going to fit it into the baking dish. And I just want it to sit against the walls of the bakeware here. So yeah, that's the first crust on the bottom. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create the seasoning, spices, and dredge for these peaches, for the peach filling. Here I have 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. If you don't want a lot of sugar and a lot of cinnamon, you know, use the ratio that you prefer. I am actually using peaches in 100% juice, so it's not a syrup. So that also makes a difference in the amount of sugar that, you know, you might want to add to this. Okay, so I am going to add some freshly grated nutmeg, just a little bit, right into this. Give that a mix. A little pinch of salt, maybe 1/8 teaspoon or less. So here's what I'm going to do. I like to add cornstarch. I'm going to go with, and then mixing it in with the sugar and the cinnamon and spices just removes a lot of the lumps. So when you go to dredge and add it to your peaches, it mixes in a lot better. Okay, so I'm going to be using 3 15-ounce cans of sliced peaches. in 100% juice. I'm just going to assume it's a fruit juice, natural juice, but it's not a syrup. So going in my bowl. Okay, so my peaches are in the bowl. You'll want to taste your peaches. These are really tart, so I might have to adjust the sugar in this recipe. I may have to add a full cup of sugar. I don't know. I'm gonna mix things up and I'll tell you. But it is important to taste what you're going to be filling your peach cobbler with. Okay, so I'm gonna add my sugar cinnamon mix. I'm also going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. You know what? That was probably a tablespoon. And I'm going to add some melted butter. This is 4 tablespoons of melted butter. And I'm just going to give this a mix. Okay, so I went ahead and added another 1/4 cup of sugar. I think it needed it, but again, go ahead and give your peaches a taste because not all peaches are super sweet. And again, the peaches that I like to use when I'm using canned peaches, I like to use it when it's in fruit juice and not the syrup. So just be mindful of your ratios and make sure you adjust them to your preference. So this should do the trick. And this is ready to go into my baking dish. Okay, so now I'm going to add my peaches into my bakeware. It's going to be great. Now I'm going to top it with the other piece, or the other crust. There we go. And now I'm just going to sort of roll and create an edge to seal the cobbler. You could also do lattice. And if you guys want a fresh peach cobbler recipe, I will link that in the description below. I also do cobbler with fresh peaches, and the crust is different. It's not a double crust, but it's just as tasty. Okay, so I just sort of pinched the edges together, or the dough together, to create this edge and to seal it. But now what I'm going to do is just create some holes in the center, just like that. Okay, so this is going to go in a preheated oven at 375 degrees for about an hour. It may be somewhere between 50 minutes to an hour. And that'll give the crust on the bottom time to cook. And if you do see that the edges are starting to cook faster or get too dark, you could cover it with some foil just to protect the pie crust that's exposed to the top. So this is after 15 minutes, and this is why you really want to let your cobbler set, because see how it's still kind of runny? The longer it sets, the thicker this gets. But I do want to show you. Look at the crust from underneath. I don't know if you can tell, but it's completely cooked and it's flaky and crisp. And I did bake my cobbler for about 50 minutes. So the cook time will definitely vary. The crust is so crisp, flaky, and oh my gosh, peach cobbler, folks, with some vanilla ice cream. I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.